My name is Alex Chun, and I'm just another cog in the corporate machine. If there's anything special about me, it's that in a past life, I might have been a deity. The final boss, max level kind. This time around, all I want to do is clock in, clock out, and not think too hard about it. But some people and ghosts just assume I'm an easy target. Some tech billionaire hired me to bust a ghost. The expert he brought along called me a con artist just there for the free snacks. Later, the expert had wet himself, and a certifiable demon king was kneeling on the floor, hugging my leg and begging me not to exorcise him into a toilet brush. A-list actress said her movie set was haunted, insisted on my personal protection 24/7. Turned out the ghost was a total drama queen, constantly trying to upstage the star on camera and complaining about her wooden acting. What could I do? I had to invent a paranormal performers guild and talk it into a contract negotiation. Don't ask me how I'm this good. It's just a gift. And don't ask why my rates are so high. Let's just say, office work is exhausting, and beating up ghosts counts as a workplace injury. This is the story of a top-tier powerhouse who just wants to slack off in the big city, but keeps getting forced to show off by idiots who don't know any better. Mr. Chun, about this situation, Richard Wallace, a middle-aged man whose reflective scalp and oily gut screamed hedge fund manager, was currently dabbing his forehead with a silk handkerchief. His mansion was huge. You could host a track meet in the living room. The crystal chandelier was so bright it made his bald spot gleam like a freshly polished bowling ball. "Relax, Rich," I said, slouched on his absurdly expensive leather sofa, one leg crossed over the other. "Panicking won't help. The ghost isn't going to just evaporate because you're stressed." The fat on Richard's face twitched. "No, but Mr. Chun, I hired you to solve the problem, and you're just..." I cut him off. $500. Flat rate. A watch I don't touch. The expert standing next to Richard, an old man in a velvet robe with a goatee, could no longer contain himself. Oomph. The audacity of this young whelp. The old man, who called himself Master Sebastian, was supposedly a 108th generation disciple of the esoteric order of Sedona. "You see, Mr. Wallace, I told you this man was a fraud," he declared, his voice full of righteous indignation. A true practitioner of the mystic arts would never be so crass, so lazy. Master Sebastian looked so proud of himself, practically spitting with every word. Richard looked at him, then at me, his expression even more conflicted. Mr. Chun was recommended by a friend. Said he had the real deal. The real deal? Is his talent sitting on his butt? Master Sebastian's goatee quivered with rage. "I have walked this earthly plane for 40 years. I have seen more demons and phantoms than you've seen grains of rice. This boy has not a flicker of arcane energy about him, yet he dares to grift in your home." I dug a finger in my ear. "You done? When I am, I'll take a nap. I was up until 3 a.m. with a deadline. I'm wiped." "You." Master Sebastian looked like he was about to have a stroke. Richard quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "Peace, Master, peace. We're all here to solve the problem. Let's all just get along." I closed my eyes, done with both of them. He was right, of course. I didn't have a flicker of arcane energy. Duh. When a being of my former caliber compresses his entire power down to a single point, you think some old con artist who can't even sense a draft is going to detect it. My name is Alex Chun, and I'm an unlucky schmuck on a cosmic do-over. Last life, I ran the whole celestial show. This life, I just want to be a salaried slacker. Unfortunately, rent in this city is criminal, so I have to take on the occasional side gig. Like this one, ghost watching. Richard Wallace's mansion definitely had a problem. The resentment in the air was thick as smog. A normal person living here would lose their fortune at best, their life at worst. But to me, it was like someone had put a little too much pepper in the air. Irritating, but not fatal. Prepare the altar. Begin the ritual. Seeing that I was ignoring him, Master Sebastian found a way to save face and decided to show off his real deal. He pulled a wooden sword, yellow paper charms, and a compass from a cloth bag, clanging them down on the floor. He chanted nonsense and did a weird, shuffling dance. It looked impressive, I guess. Richard watched nervously, holding his breath. I just shifted into a more comfortable position and tried to catch up on my sleep. Suddenly, crack, the enormous crystal chandelier in the living room went out. The entire space was plunged into darkness. Ah! Richard let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. It's here. The ghost is here. In the blackness, the only light came from the eerie green glow of Master Sebastian's compass. Its needle was spinning like a top. What foul spirit dares to act so brazenly before me? Master Sebastian's voice trembled, but he was trying to sound tough. Show yourself at once, or I shall scatter your soul to the winds. An icy wind swept through the room. Then a whispery voice echoed through the living room. Who is yelling? In my house. The voice sounded like nails on a chalkboard, sharp and cold. Richard's scream devolved into a pathetic whimper. The hand Master Sebastian used to hold his wooden sword was shaking like he had Parkinson's. Tricks and illusions. I shall break your wicked spell. He shouted, flinging a yellow paper charm forward. By the ancient rites, I command you. The paper fluttered harmlessly to the floor. Nothing happened. The air went silent, so quiet you could hear Richard's teeth chattering. The whispering voice spoke again, laced with mockery. That's it. Thump. Master Sebastian's legs gave out, and he dropped to his knees. And Mr. Ghost, sir, spare me, he stammered. I am just a traveling showman, trying to make a buck. I didn't see anything. I sighed. Can a guy even get a nap in peace? In the darkness, I slowly sat up. Hey, could you guys keep it down? You're making it impossible to sleep. My voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silent room, it was crystal clear. The ghost and the two men on the floor all froze. In the darkness, a pair of blood-red eyes slowly turned toward me. There's another one. The cold voice held a note of curiosity. In the dark, the pair of red eyes floated toward me. Closer and closer. A rotten, fishy stench filled the air. Richard had already passed out. His eyes rolled back in his head as he lay twitching on the floor, foaming at the mouth. Master Sebastian was still on his knees, his head buried so deep he looked like an ostrich, his whole body shaking. You're not afraid of me, boy. The red eyes stopped right in front of my face. I could clearly see it now. A bloated, pale white face, its features squeezed together, with wet hair dripping black water. A drowning victim. I yawned, so wide it brought tears to my eyes. Afraid? Why would I be afraid of you? I pointed at the black water dripping from his hair. Could you step back from my sofa? It's expensive. The ghostly face was visibly stunned. He had probably killed plenty of people, but he'd definitely never met anyone who complained about him dirtying the furniture. Who are you? The ghost's voice was now wary. I'm the guy who was trying to take a nap. I was telling the truth. Oh, nope. The ghost sounded like he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world and let out a grating laugh. Ha ha, nap in this house? Boy, do you know who I am? Nope, and I don't want to. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It's almost midnight. I gotta go. I have work in the morning. I started to get up. Stay where you are, the ghost shrieked. The temperature in the mansion dropped, and frost began to form in the corners of the room. You think you could just walk out of my house? Tonight, you will all die here and keep me company. The ghost's form swelled, transforming into a huge black mist that lunged toward me with grasping tendrils. It's over. We're finished. Master Sebastian whimpered from the floor. I frowned at the approaching black mist, not because it was powerful, but because it had terrible breath. I decided to teach it a lesson. I raised my hand, index and middle fingers together, and pointed them at the black cloud. Freeze. I said it quietly. It's the most basic move in the My Word is Law playbook, a simple binding spell. For a minor ghost like this, it was child's play. However, 1 second passed. 2 seconds passed. Nothing happened. The black mist was still lunging, its gaping maw now less than a foot from my face. I froze. Damn it, did it short circuit? Is the spiritual energy in this world so thin that my powers just fizzle out sometimes? The ghost's mouth was about to swallow me whole. My mind raced. No time to fight back properly. Run? Too embarrassing. In a flash of inspiration, an idea struck. Got it. A golden light flashed in my eyes. Grand illusion. Just as the ghost's face was about to touch mine, it stopped. Its blood-red eyes were filled with absolute terror and confusion. In its eyes, Alex Shun was still sitting on the sofa, but behind me was no longer a wall. Instead, a pair of massive, 100-foot-tall bronze doors were slowly swinging open. Two words were carved on the doors in blood-red letters: the underworld. From within the gates came endless darkness and the sound of wailing. Countless demonic bailiffs in uniform armor, holding chains, stared out at him with ice-cold eyes. At the forefront stood a 10-foot-tall, muscle-bound demon with the head of a bull. The bull-headed demon snorted, breathing out 2 jets of sulphurous flame. A demonic figure next to it opened a massive ledger and read in a monotone voice, "Walter Schmidt. Male. Born 1988. Died 2022. Charge: escaping the jurisdiction of the Department of Reincarnation, illegally remaining in the mortal plane, and harassment of the living. By the laws of the underworld, subject is to be cast into the 18th level of hell to suffer the torments of the eternally burning oil, never to be reborn. Sentence to be carried out immediately." The bull demon stepped through the gate. Its massive hooves shook the entire mansion with each step. The chains in its hands rattled ominously. The drowned ghost, Walter, was completely paralyzed with fear. He was shaking so hard his ghostly form was starting to dissipate. "And no, that's not. I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he stammered. I just didn't want them throwing parties in my house. It was too loud." The bull demon was now standing over him, its massive shadow engulfing him. "Silence," the demon rumbled and seized him in its massive hand. Mercy. I was wrong. I'll never do it again." Walter shrieked in agony. I slowly stood up and walked over to him. I patted his icy shoulder. "See? If you'd just been quiet earlier, none of this would have happened." Walter looked at me as if I were a god. "And my lord, save me. I don't want to be deep-fried for eternity." I cleared my throat and waved a hand at the demons. "Hold on." The demons immediately stopped, bowing respectfully to me. "Your command, my lord." That scene completely shattered Walter's psyche. Thump! He fell to his knees before me. "Mercy, my lord. Mercy." This lowly spirit was blind and failed to recognize your greatness. "I have offended you. Please, my lord, in consideration of my difficult existence, spare my life." He kowtowed frantically, his head banging against the floor with a series of dull thuds. I nodded, satisfied. The effect was excellent. Illusions might not have any real stopping power, but they were first class for putting on a show, especially for small-town ghosts who'd never seen the big city. I clasped my hands behind my back and spoke in a profound, mysterious tone. "Considering your difficult existence and the fact that you have not taken a life, the death penalty may be waived, but you cannot escape punishment. You shall serve as the security guard for this mansion. You are responsible for protecting this house. If any other unwelcome things show up, you know what to do." Hearing he wouldn't be deep-fried, Walter was overjoyed. "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord. This lowly spirit will serve you with utmost devotion until my second death." I waved a hand dismissively. "All right, you're dismissed." The great gates to the underworld behind me slowly closed. The bull demon and its bailiffs vanished. The crystal chandelier in the living room flickered back on with a click. It was as if the whole thing had been a dream. Richard Wallace slowly came to, looking around in a daze. Master Sebastian was still kneeling on the floor, soaked in sweat as if he'd just been pulled out of a lake. Only Walter, the drowned ghost, remained in his kneeling position, except now he was floating obediently in a corner, his head bowed, not daring to move. I sat back down on the sofa and picked up the contract and pen from the table. I signed my name with a flourish and handed it to Richard. "All right, problem solved. Mr. Wallace, let's settle the bill." "Huh? Oh, right." Richard finally snapped out of it. He looked at the ghost cowering in the corner like a chastised puppy, then back at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of awe and terror. "And Master Chun, you're a true divine being." He scrambled over, pulling out his phone. "Master, we agreed on 500. No. 500 would be an insult. I'll transfer you 50,000. No, 100,000. I just looked at him. The contract says 500. I'm a man of my word." Richard was stunned. I held out my phone with the payment QR code. "Send the money. Also, that guy's black goo dripped on the sofa. The cleaning fee will be extra. We'll call it 49,500. Richard Wallace." Master Sebastian. It was 1 in the morning by the time I left Richard's mansion. My phone buzzed with a notification. $50,000 received. I transferred $49,950 to an anonymous charitable account, keeping just $500 for myself. It couldn't be helped. The karmic baggage of this body was too heavy. Spending dirty money would probably get me struck by lightning. Better to donate it and have a clear conscience. As for the $500, that was my hard-earned fee. I called an Uber, went home, and crashed. The next day, I was back at the office, clocking in as usual. I'm an intern at a small design firm. My daily routine consists of drafting, revising drafts, and getting yelled at by clients. My life is simple, unadorned, and mind-numbingly boring. Alex, this logo, the client wants it bigger, and also smaller. Make it a vibrant, shimmering black. You know what I mean, right? The design director slammed a stack of files on my desk. I nodded. Got it, Chief. No problem, Chief. The moment he turned around, I tossed the files into the recycling bin. You gotta be kidding me. Once it's quitting time, not even a god could make me move my mouse an extra inch. This peaceful, slacker life didn't last long. Trouble came knocking again. This time it was big trouble. A man claiming to be the agent for the A-list actress Chloe Cascade got my number from Richard Wallace. He said Chloe had run into something nasty at a film studio and wanted me to take a look. I was going to refuse. I'm an intern. What time do I have to deal with some celebrity? But the price they offered was just too tempting. Upon successful completion, this is the figure. The agent held up 5 fingers. 50,000, I asked. The agent smiled, the light glinting off his glasses. 5 million. I was silent. I might not care about money, but my anonymous charity account did. Those kids in rural Appalachia weren't going to get new schools on their own. So, I took 3 days of personal leave and boarded a flight to the film studio. Chloe Cascade was shooting a period horror film set in the 1920s. The production had rented out an entire historic estate that was rumored to be a little spooky on its own. When I arrived, filming had already been shut down. Everyone looked miserable. The agent, Linda, introduced me to Chloe Cascade. She was even more beautiful in person than on screen, but her face was pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She looked like a wreck. Master Chun, you're finally here. The director and producers standing around her, however, looked at me with suspicion. I was too young. A bespectacled assistant director couldn't help but speak up. Linda, this is the master you hired? He looks like a kid. Are you sure he's not a scammer? Linda shot him a glare. Warren, Master Chun was personally recommended by Richard Wallace. He has real abilities. Warren sniffed, but said nothing more. I ignored them and walked straight up to Chloe. I looked her over. There was indeed a wisp of dark energy clinging to her. Not strong, but annoying, like a fly buzzing around her head. Tell me what happened, I said, getting straight to the point. Chloe's lips trembled as she began her story. It started 3 days ago. They were shooting a night scene where Chloe had to deliver her lines to an antique vanity mirror. When they reviewed the footage, they saw that in the mirror, next to her own reflection, was another woman's face. It was pressed right up against hers, deathly pale, and smiling at her. It terrified the entire crew. After that, strange things kept happening. Props would move on their own. The lights on the set would flicker. Late at night, they would hear someone singing an old show tune, but they could never find the source. The weirdest part was what was happening to Chloe. Every night, she had nightmares about a woman in a flapper dress haunting her. Now, she couldn't even look in a mirror without feeling like someone was watching her from the other side. Master, am I being haunted? Chloe asked, her voice cracking. I nodded. Yes. My blunt answer seemed to stun everyone in the room. Warren, the assistant director, scoffed. Superstitious nonsense. I think you actors are just stressed out and scaring yourselves. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on Chloe. The thing is right behind you. Right now, as soon as I said it, the temperature in the room plummeted. Chloe screamed and froze, too scared to move. Everyone instinctively looked behind her. There was nothing there. Warren's face took on an I knew was a fraud expression. Master, that's not a very funny joke. I smiled. Who said I was joking? I walked over to Chloe and spoke to the empty air behind her. Come on out. Stop hiding. If you don't, I'll just have to drag you out of the mirror myself. A contemptuous cold laugh echoed in the air. Hiv hiv. Interesting. Then, the full-length mirror in front of Chloe suddenly rippled like water. A figure in an old-fashioned sequin dress and heavy stage makeup slowly stepped out of it. It was a female ghost. Her makeup was so thick you couldn't make out her features. She held a silk handkerchief, her posture alluring. Hee hee. It's been a long time since I've seen such a handsome young man. The ghost giggled, covering her mouth as her eyes locked onto me. A ghost. The crew members panicked, scrambling and tripping over each other to get out. Warren, who had been so smug moments before, ran faster than anyone, slamming right into the doorframe on his way out. Soon, the only ones left in the room were me, a petrified Chloe, her agent Linda, and the ghost who had just stepped out of the mirror. The ghost seemed to enjoy the effect she had. She pointed a delicate finger at Chloe. This woman, I want her. Her body will make a fine stage for my performance. Chloe was trembling so violently she couldn't speak. I dug a finger in my ear. Let's make a deal. The ghost looked at me with interest. Oh, do tell. Could you stay away from her? I said, pointing at Chloe. The smell of her cheap foundation is giving me a headache. The ghost's laughter died in her throat. The smile on the ghost's face froze. Her heavily lined eyes stared daggers at me. What did you say? She asked, each word dripping with menace. I said your foundation is a cheap knockoff. You should get a better brand. I replied honestly. You're asking for it, the ghost shrieked, her form vanishing in a blur. The next second, she reappeared in front of me, her sharp fingernails swiping at my throat. The nails were coated in a thick black energy, clearly toxic. I stood my ground, not moving a muscle. Just as her claws were about to reach me, I lifted my hand and flicked my middle finger. Tink! A small sound. The ghost let out a piercing scream and was sent flying backward, slamming hard against the wall before sliding to the floor. The 5 fingernails on her outstretched hand were all broken, clean off. How is this possible? The ghost stared at her now blunt fingertips in utter disbelief. She was a century-old, vengeful spirit. Her power was such that most exorcists would run at the sight of her. And today, she'd been sent flying by a flick from some kid who looked like a stiff breeze could knock him over. Who are you? The ghost's voice was finally laced with fear. I didn't answer her. Instead, I walked over to Chloe, who was still frozen in shock. I patted her on the shoulder. Snap out of it. It's over. Chloe finally came to her senses. She looked at the ghost on the floor, then at me, her expression a complex mix of emotions. Now, can we talk like civilized people? I said, pulling up a chair and sitting down in front of the ghost. The ghost scrambled up from the floor, clutching her hand and glaring at me with pure hatred. But she didn't dare make another move. Why are you haunting her? I asked. Because I want to. What's it to you? The ghost was still trying to act tough. I'm not a fan of violence, I sighed. But if you force my hand, I won't have a choice. I held out my right hand, palm up. A ball of golden flame erupted in my palm, burning fiercely. Celestial fire, the kind that burns souls. At the sight of the flame, the ghost's form trembled violently. It was a terror that came from the very core of her being. You're an arch-exorcist. I'm not an arch-exorcist, I said, shaking my head. I'm just an ordinary person who believes in science. The ghost. You're telling me you believe in science while casually juggling a fireball in your hand? I'll ask you one more time. Why are you haunting her? I tossed the ball of fire in the air like it was an orange. The ghost's defenses crumbled completely. I'll talk. The story came spilling out. Her name was Lillian. In life, she had been a vaudeville actress in the Roaring Twenties. She was so talented that a powerful gangster took a liking to her and wanted to force her into marriage. She refused and ultimately took her own life in this very manner, still wearing her stage costume. Her resentment was so strong that her spirit became trapped here. When the film crew arrived, she hadn't planned on harming anyone. But then she saw Chloe. She's so beautiful. Lillian's voice was tinged with jealousy. And she's an actress. She gets to stand in front of everyone to enjoy the applause and the fame. Why? I worked so hard my whole life, and look how I ended up. She has everything without even trying. So, you decided to ruin her? I asked. I didn't want to ruin her. Lillian protested. I just wanted to borrow her body to perform one more time. Just one more show. She was sobbing by the end of it. Chloe, listening, seemed to lose some of her fear, replaced by a touch of sympathy. I heard the story and nodded. I see. It's a very moving story. Lillian looked up, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. So, will you help me, Master? No. My reply was blunt. First, possession is against the law. Second, you're making me late to clock out. Lillian. All right, story time's over, I said, standing up. The celestial fire in my hand burned even brighter. You have two choices. 1. I send you on to the next life. 2. I burn you until not even dust is left. Lillian's ghostly face went sheet white. Master, please. I don't want to move on. I haven't had enough of the stage. Then there's no choice, I said, raising my hand, about to let the fire fly. Wait, Lillian shrieked. I have an idea. Another way. Oh, I paused. Lillian's eyes darted around. Then she pointed at Chloe. I could be her acting coach. Yes, an acting coach. She got more excited as she spoke. This woman's acting is terrible. She's a block of wood. That crying scene earlier, she tried for half an hour and couldn't squeeze out a single tear. If it were me, I'd have nailed it in one take. Master, you see, I'm useful. Don't exorcise me. I can help her win an Oscar. Chloe, who had been feeling sympathetic, now looked slightly offended. I stroked my chin. This was an interesting proposal. You know how to coach? Of course. I was a star on Broadway. Lillian puffed out her chest with pride. I looked at Chloe. What do you think? Chloe was stunned. Her expression was complicated. An acting coach who's a ghost? Who would believe that? But then she looked at the dancing flame in my hand and at Lillian's hopeful face. Finally, she gritted her teeth. Okay, I agree. Deal, I said, extinguishing the fire. I turned to Lillian. From now on, you stick with her. Teach her how to act. No slacking, no funny business. If I find out you're up to no good. I smiled, showing my teeth. You'll face the consequences. Lillian shuddered and nodded frantically. Yes, yes, Master. You can count on me. I'll give it my all. And so, the problem was solved in the most bizarre way possible. The crew went back to work. Everyone noticed that Chloe was like a different person. Her acting improved by leaps and bounds, especially her crying scenes. The tears came on command, full of raw emotion that moved the director to tears himself. Everyone said she'd had a breakthrough. Only Chloe knew the truth. Every time she struggled with a scene, a voice would whisper in her ear. Emotion. Your emotion is all wrong. Your father just died. Not your dog. Cry, damn it. Smile. Make it more seductive. You're a femme fatale who topples kingdoms, not the village idiot. The day Chloe won her Oscar, she made a special call to me. She was sobbing on the phone. Master Chun, thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. I was in the middle of eating instant ramen. Got it. Anything else? If not, I'm hanging up. My noodles are getting soggy. I hung up and went back to slurping my noodles. Another day, another soul saved. All in a day's work. After the Chloe Cascade incident, I started to get a bit of a reputation in certain circles. Richard Wallace and Chloe's agent, Linda, talked me up like I was some kind of living legend. Every so often, someone would pull some strings to get my number. Bad feng shui at the office, a crying baby at night, strange green smoke coming from a cemetery. I turned them all down. Are you kidding me? A former celestial emperor doesn't do house calls for petty hauntings. My main gig is being a corporate drone. My side hustle is saving underprivileged kids. Ghost busting is purely an accident. Until one day, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered casually. Hello. A sinister voice came from the other end. Is this Alex Chun, the master? This is he. Who's this? Hit. Who I am is not important. What's important is that I know who you are. Meddler. I frowned. Spit out. Bold. The voice on the other end grew colder. Two of my less competent subordinates were dealt with by you. One named Walter, the other Lillian. Do you remember them? It clicked. Oh, you're their boss? You can call me the Ghost King. There was a note of pride in his voice. Ghost King. I almost laughed. Are you guys LARPing or something? Insolence, the Ghost King on the other end roared. Alex Chun, I don't care where you came from. You broke my rules and hurt my people. We have a score to settle. How do you want to settle it? Simple, the Ghost King sneered. Tomorrow noon, the abandoned amusement park south of the city. Come alone. If you don't, there will be consequences. He hung up. I stared at my phone, speechless. Are all ghosts this dramatic these days? A gang war, and he picked an abandoned amusement park? Just in case anyone had any doubts he was a ghost? I wasn't going to go, but he mentioned Walter and Lillian. Those two were now technically my ghost employees. If your employees get bullied, it's bad form for the boss not to step in. But most importantly, my perfect attendance bonus for the month was probably shot anyway. Since I was already getting docked, I might as well take the day off and have some fun. The next day at noon, I arrived at the abandoned amusement park. The place was a wreck. The carousel was covered in rust, and the Ferris wheel stood like a lonely steel giant. The moment I stepped through the gates, I felt it. The entire park was shrouded in a massive aura of ghostly energy. At least 100 ghosts. Looks like he brought his whole crew. I walked to the central plaza. It was already filled with ghosts of every shape and size. Hanged ghosts, burned ghosts, drowned ghosts, car crash ghosts. It was a bizarre collection, like a convention for the damned. The leader was sitting on a decaying carousel horse. He wore a long black robe, his face obscured, with only 2 glowing red eyes visible. He had a pretty strong presence. That must be the self-proclaimed Ghost King. The moment I appeared, all eyes turned to me. 100 pairs of ghostly eyes, all staring. It was quite a sight. "You're Alex Chin?" the Ghost King on the carousel asked, his voice the same as on the phone. "That's me." I found a relatively clean bench and sat down. "You've got guts, coming here alone," the Ghost King said, floating down from the horse and approaching me. "Where are my 2 useless underlings?" he asked. "Oh, one's working security at a mansion. The other's an acting coach on a film set. They're both pretty busy." I told him the truth. The Ghost King was taken aback, clearly not expecting that answer. A smaller ghost behind him couldn't take it anymore. "Boss, stop wasting time with him. This guy's too arrogant. Let's tear him to shreds." "Yeah, tear him up. Show him the power of our syndicate." The ghosts started clamoring. The Ghost King raised a hand, silencing them. His red eyes stared at me. "Alex Chun, I'll give you a chance. Join me. Be my second in command. Together, we can rule the night in this city." I looked at him like he was an idiot. "Have you been reading too many comic books?" The Ghost King's face darkened. "It seems you prefer the hard way." "I just think your proposal is stupid," I said, standing up and dusting myself off. "First, I have no interest in ruling the night. I'm interested in clocking out on time. Second, you and this pathetic crew of yours think you're worthy of joining forces with me." That did it. The whole place erupted. All the ghosts were furious. "Kill him. Boss, give the order." The Ghost King was thoroughly enraged. "Fine. Very well. If you're so eager to die, I'll grant your wish." He waved his hand. "My loyal subjects, attack. Devour him whole." At his command, 100 ghosts, wreathed in dark energy, surged toward me like a tidal wave. 100 ghosts, clawing and snarling as they rushed me. If Master Sebastian were here, the sight would have probably scared him into the afterlife. But Alex Chun, just found it a bit noisy. Watching the ghostly tide approach, I sighed. "Looks like I'm working overtime today." I slowly raised my right hand. This time, I had to make sure the spell didn't fizzle out. I discreetly channeled a tiny wisp of my true celestial power to my fingertips. That should do it. "By the power of heaven and earth, I call upon the ancient law." I muttered some cool-sounding line I'd heard in a movie. It did nothing, but it was all about the presentation. Then, I looked up at the sky and snapped my fingers. Snap! The crisp sound was almost lost in the cacophony of ghostly wails. But, the next second, the entire world fell silent. The sky, which had been a dreary gray, was suddenly torn apart by an endless golden light. A massive, golden celestial sigil, brighter than the sun, materialized above the amusement park. The sigil rotated slowly, covered in dense, complex runes. Each rune radiated an aura of pure, holy power. It was the Great Solar Purification Ray, a strategic-level spell used in the celestial realm to cleanse demonic territories. I was using less than a 10,000th of its power, worried I might accidentally purify the entire planet. But it was more than enough. The moment the sigil appeared, all the ghosts rushing toward me froze in mid-air, as if someone had hit the pause button. The expressions on their faces shifted from rage to terror, and finally to despair. Golden sunlight rained down from the sigil. This was no ordinary sunlight. For creatures of darkness, it was the deadliest poison. Agonized screams filled the air. Any ghost touched by the golden light began to melt like snow, turning into plumes of green smoke. In just a few seconds, the first few dozen ghosts were completely purified, vanishing without a trace. The ghosts behind them were terrified and tried to flee, but it was too late. The entire park was enveloped by the array. There was nowhere to run. And mercy, Great One. I was wrong. I'll never do it again. I have an 80-year-old ghost mother and a newborn ghost baby at home. Their cries echoed through the park. The once mighty ghost syndicate was now just a flock of lambs awaiting slaughter. Only the Ghost King, being slightly more powerful, was able to hold on. But he wasn't doing well. The golden light seared his ghostly form, which sizzled like it was being doused in acid. He looked up at the sigil in the sky, then at me, standing calmly below. His red eyes were filled with terror and regret. He finally understood what kind of being he had provoked. This wasn't just some powerful exorcist. This was a god. Great One. The Ghost King's voice trembled. Please, have mercy. I ignored him and looked up at the sky. Golden light everywhere, not a cloud in sight. Nice, but it felt like something was missing. Right, sound effects. I cleared my throat and shouted at the sky. Release the chicken. The words had barely left my mouth when the golden sigil in the sky flared. Golden rooster the size of a Boeing 747 strode out from the center of the sigil. Its body was covered in golden feathers, as if cast from pure gold. Its comb was a brilliant crimson, like a ruby. Its eyes shone brighter than searchlights. The moment it appeared, a sacred and majestic aura suppressed the entire area. All the ghosts, including the Ghost King, were pinned to the ground by this pressure, unable to move. It was something I'd conjured with an illusion. The real celestial beasts were too flashy. Summoning one might scare the locals. A giant chicken felt more. Down to earth. The golden rooster looked down at the ghosts on the ground. Then it opened its beak. All the ghosts expected it to breathe fire or unleash some world-ending attack. Instead, cock-a-doodle-doo, a loud, piercing, and incredibly masculine crow echoed across the heavens. The sound waves spread out in golden ripples, sweeping across the entire park. The remaining ghosts were hit by the crow. They didn't even have time to scream before they exploded with a pop, dissolving into motes of light and disappearing into the air. One crow, 100 ghosts annihilated. The plaza was empty in an instant. Only the Ghost King remained, lying on the ground, shaking like a leaf. The golden rooster tilted its head, as if asking me, "This one too?" I waved my hand. "Leave one alive." The sigil and the golden rooster in the sky slowly faded. The sunlight returned to normal. It was as if the apocalyptic scene had never happened. I walked over to the Ghost King and crouched down. "Now, can we have a proper conversation?" The Ghost King looked up, his obscured face a mask of terror. Great One. I was wrong. I'm not the Ghost King. I'm just the regional ghost census taker. I'm in charge of this district's ghost population survey. I was blind. I offended a divine being like you. Please, just let me go. Pretend I'm just a bad smell. All he wanted now was to live. I smiled. Letting you go isn't out of the question. But I have a question for you. Ask away, Great One. I'll tell you everything I know. Who's in charge around here? I mean the real boss. The Ghost King hesitated, his eyes darting away. And no one. I'm a boss. The smile vanished from my face. Is that so? I raised my hand, and a small wisp of celestial fire danced on my fingertip. The Ghost King was so scared his soul nearly flew out of his body. I'll talk. It's the Obsidian Lord. The Obsidian Lord. Yes, he's the ruler of all the spirits in this area. His power is immense. It said he's close to becoming a ghost immortal. The Ghost King's voice was filled with awe. Where is he? In the tallest skyscraper downtown, the Apex Tower, the entire top floor. It's all his territory. The Apex Tower? I was stunned. Isn't that where I work? My company is on the 34th floor of that building. Damn it. So I've been working next door to a ghost immortal all this time? I'll let the regional census taker go. He might be useful later. As for this obsidian lord he mentioned, a being on the verge of becoming a ghost immortal, holed up on the floor above my office. This could be interesting. I went back to the office and resumed my life as a corporate drone. Everything was normal. The design director was still yelling. The clients were still making impossible demands. But I saw everything with new eyes. The Apex Tower was the city's landmark building, over 100 stories tall. My company was on the 34th floor. The top floor was the 120th. I'd never been up there. It was said to be off-limits to the public, the private domain of some mysterious billionaire. Now it seemed that billionaire was probably not human. I started paying attention to the strange occurrences in the building. I hadn't noticed before, but now that I was looking for it. Yep, there it was. The entire building was shrouded in a faint, almost imperceptible dark energy. It was subtle, hidden. A normal person would never notice. But this energy was slowly affecting everyone in the building. For example, the employees of my company worked an insane amount of overtime. They were all hopped up like they were on something, never leaving before midnight. I used to think it was just corporate exploitation. Now I realize they were probably being influenced by the dark energy, giving them endless stamina. And the elevators in the building would sometimes act up. They'd stop at a random floor. The doors would open to a solid wall. Or the security cameras would occasionally catch a blurry black shadow. People just assumed it was old equipment. Now I understood. It was the effect of his territory. This obsidian lord was something else. He wasn't going on a killing spree. Instead, he was slowly boiling the frog, turning the entire building into his personal spirit farm. He was siphoning the life force of the thousands of people in the building to nourish himself. A clever approach, but he made one mistake. He shouldn't have set up shop above my office. It was interfering with my slacking off. I decided to pay him a visit. At quitting time, while all my colleagues were working like maniacs, I was the only one to pack my bag and clock out. I didn't go straight to the 120th floor. I knew there would be wards. I went to the roof first. Standing on the rooftop, the evening wind blowing, the entire city skyline stretched out before me. I closed my eyes, and my consciousness expanded instantly. It flowed like mercury, silently seeping into every corner of the building. 34th floor. My colleagues were still grinding away. 50th floor. A financial firm was having a meeting. 80th floor. A social media company was live streaming. Soon, my consciousness reached the 120th floor. As expected, an invisible barrier blocked my probing. A very advanced ward. But to me, it was as flimsy as paper. My consciousness touched it gently and passed right through. The scene on the 120th floor surprised even me. It wasn't an office at all. It was a massive, ancient, and ornate palace. Carved beams, painted rafters, gilded halls. It was a completely separate dimension. This obsidian lord had used incredible power to create a pocket dimension at the top of the skyscraper. Very impressive. In the deepest part of the palace, on a throne, sat a figure. He wore a black robe embroidered with dragons, his face handsome, but radiating a sinister aura. He sat with his eyes closed, seemingly in meditation. Black energy swirled around him, his presence immense. This must be him, the Obsidian Lord. The moment my consciousness swept over him, his eyes snapped open. 2 beams of black light shot from his eyes. "Who's there?" he roared, his voice echoing through the palace. He had detected my presence. I wasn't concerned. I retracted my consciousness and opened my eyes. With a flicker, I vanished from the rooftop. The next second, I was standing inside the palace on the 120th floor. My sudden appearance made the Obsidian Lord's pupils constrict. He stood up from his throne, staring at me intently. "How did you get in?" His voice was filled with alarm. "I walked," I said, looking around the palace impressed. "Nice place. Good taste. Who are you?" The Obsidian Lord's aura intensified, and the entire palace began to tremble. "Me?" I turned to him and smiled. "I'm your downstairs neighbor. The name's Alex. I work on the 34th floor." The Obsidian Lord's brow furrowed. He could sense that I had no magical energy. I was just an ordinary person, but he absolutely did not believe an ordinary person could pass through his wards unnoticed. "What is your purpose here?" He didn't attack rashly. Caution was a necessity to reach his level. "Oh, nothing major." I waved a hand. "Just came to discuss something with you." Speak. Could you maybe tone down the dark energy? I asked with a sincere expression. It's making my colleagues downstairs work overtime every day. The work culture is getting way too competitive. It's seriously affecting my slacking off. The Obsidian Lord. He had probably cultivated for 1,000 years and faced countless enemies. But he had definitely never encountered someone who came to his door because he was interfering with their ability to slack off. The air was thick with awkwardness. Finally, the Obsidian Lord broke the silence. He laughed, a cold, chilling laugh. Young man, you are the most arrogant person I have met in 1,000 years. And the most foolish. He slowly raised his hand, and a ball of black energy began to gather in his palm. The energy ball pulsed with destructive power. Since you are so eager to die, I will grant your wish. The black energy ball in the Obsidian Lord's hand grew larger. The air in the palace became thick and heavy. Space itself began to distort. This single attack was powerful enough to shear the skyscraper in half. To die by my soul annihilator orb is an honor. The Obsidian Lord's voice was like that of a demon from the abyss. I looked at the soul annihilator orb in his hand and nodded. Yeah, it looks pretty powerful. What's the blast radius? Will it affect the floors below? If my desk gets blown up, my boss will dock my pay. The Obsidian Lord's jaw twitched. He felt that speaking to this person was an insult to his 1,000 years of cultivation. Still talking tough in the face of death. He wasted no more words and thrust his hand forward. The black soul annihilator orb shot toward me with world-ending force. It was faster than the speed of sound. It left black cracks in space in its wake. I stood my ground, still not moving. I just held up 2 fingers, index and middle. Just as the soul annihilator orb was about to hit me, I gently pinched, and then the entire world seemed to freeze. The orb, capable of destroying everything, was caught between my 2 fingers. It was still spinning wildly, releasing terrifying energy. But between my fingertips, it was completely immobilized, like a captured ping-pong ball. The expression on the Obsidian Lord's face was frozen. For the first time, his sinister eyes showed a look of utter horror. This is impossible. His soul annihilator orb was one of his strongest attacks. Even a ghost immortal of his level wouldn't dare to take it head-on. How could it be? So easily caught. The energy is a bit unstable. Too many impurities, I commented. Sloppy work. Then I applied a little pressure with my fingers. Crack. A faint sound. The soul annihilator orb shattered like a glass marble. It dissipated into motes of black light, vanishing into the air. It didn't even stir a breeze. The Obsidian Lord's body shook violently. He coughed up a mouthful of black blood. It was his life essence. With his attack broken, he suffered the backlash. Who are you? His voice trembled. He finally realized that today he had provoked an existence he could not afford to offend. This young man who claimed to be his neighbor was no human. He was a monster, a god. I didn't answer him. Instead, I looked at him with a friendly smile. Now, can we sit down and have a civil discussion about the importance of a healthy work-life balance? The Obsidian Lord. All he wanted now was to escape. Without hesitation, he turned into a streak of black light and tried to flee. Did I say you could leave? I said casually. As the words left my mouth, the space in the entire palace solidified. The streak of black light slammed into an invisible wall and was thrown back. He returned to his human form and fell to the ground in a heap. He discovered with horror that this space had been completely sealed by a terrifying power beyond his comprehension. He was a bird in a cage. Great One. He finally cast aside all his dignity, his voice filled with terror. This humble one was blind. I have offended you. Please spare my life. He was begging, just like that regional census taker. No, originality. I walked over to him and looked down. I told you, I just came to discuss something. You're the one who wanted to fight. Yes. It's my fault. I deserve to die. The Obsidian Lord lay on the ground, not daring to lift his head. All right, stop playing dead. I waved a hand. Get up. The Obsidian Lord shakily got to his feet. I have a question for you. What are you really trying to do here? The Obsidian Lord didn't dare to hide anything and told me everything. He was indeed a nearly 1,000-year-old ghost king. A century ago, he discovered that this location was the city's dragon vein, a nexus of immense energy. So he built his palace here to absorb the energy and cultivate. The skyscraper was built later at his suggestion to a human tycoon to better gather human presence and life force to help him break through to the ghost immortal realm. Your goal is to ascend to the spirit realm? I asked. The Obsidian Lord nodded. A noble goal, but you took the wrong path. I shook my head. Stealing the fortune of others is a shortcut that always leads to a dead end. Yes, this humble one was foolish. All right, I can't be bothered with your life story. I waved a hand. I'm here for one thing today. Please command me, Great One. From now on, clean up your damn dark energy. Stop affecting the company downstairs. Yes, I will do so immediately, the Obsidian Lord promised. Also, I added, this place is nice, very spacious. From now on, it'll be our company's team building venue. The Obsidian Lord, huh? What, huh? You got a problem with that? I glared at him. No, no problem at all. The Obsidian Lord shuddered. It is my honor that you would grace this place with your presence. You are welcome anytime. Good. That's more like it. I nodded, satisfied. Oh, by the way, I remembered something. Your name is the Obsidian Lord? Ygis. It's a lame name. Too edgy. I stroked my chin. From now on, your name is Blackie, the Obsidian Lord, a 1,000-year-old king, a future ghost immortal. The expression on his face was worse than if he had just eaten a turd, but he didn't dare to object. Yes, Great One. I understand. My name is Blackie. Good boy, I patted his shoulder. Keep up the good work. If you need anything, I've got your back. With that, I flickered and vanished from the palace, leaving Blackie, the Obsidian Lord, standing alone in his vast palace, a confused wreck. He looked at the shoulder I had patted. A faint, golden handprint was visible there, a celestial-grade seal. He knew that from this day on, his life was completely in the hands of the young man who called himself his neighbor. He had gone from a ghost king to a building manager. The next day, the atmosphere at our company changed. Everyone was like a wind-up toy that had run down, sluggish and yawning. Weird. I have no motivation today. Yeah, I feel completely drained. I just want to sleep and maybe quit. The design director was slumped over his desk, too tired to even yell at anyone. I watched this scene with satisfaction. Yep, Blackie was efficient. With the dark energy gone, these employees who had been used as human batteries were back to their normal, exhausted selves. This was the proper slacking off atmosphere a company should have. In the afternoon, the boss suddenly called everyone for a meeting. Team. The boss was a balding man with a beer belly named Frank. Seeing as everyone has been working so hard lately and morale is low, I've decided to organize a team-building event to help you all relax. A few half-hearted cheers echoed through the office. And this time, we're going to do something exciting, Frank said with a mysterious smile. The location will be the top floor of this very building. I hear it's a mysterious area that's never been open to the public. I pulled some strings and managed to rent it for a day. My colleagues exchanged confused glances. The top floor? The 120th? Isn't that the legendary territory of some mysterious tycoon? Boss, what are you going to do there? Someone asked. Great question. Frank slapped his thigh. I'm planning an immersive haunted house adventure team-building event. I've even got a name for it. A night of terror at the Apex Tower. Me. I had to admire my boss's talent for tempting fate. A haunted house adventure in the lair of a 1,000-year-old ghost king? I've hired a professional team to handle all the props and actors. I guarantee it'll be thrilling. You'll be screaming your heads off, Frank said with excitement. I can already picture it. A group of mortals running from staff in monster costumes in the palace of a ghost king. And the real ghost king would have to stand by, applauding and cheering them on. It was going to be beautiful. Friday night, the team-building event began. Our entire company, a few dozen people, took a private elevator to the 120th floor. When the doors opened, everyone was stunned. It wasn't an office. It was a magnificent, ancient palace. Although the lights were dimmed and some cobwebs and skulls were hung up for the haunted house theme, its grandeur was undeniable. Whoa, boss, did you rent out the Met? Is this really inside an office building? My colleagues were amazed. Frank was also confused. He had just filed a request with building management. He had no idea it looked like this, but he quickly recovered and cleared his throat. Ahem, I told you, it's a mysterious area. Don't be surprised, this is all part of the event. A staff member in a black robe and a ghost mask approached us. His voice was hoarse. Welcome to the Hall of Horrors. I recognized him immediately. Wasn't this the regional ghost census taker I'd beaten up a few days ago? Looks like Blackie put him to work as an actor. Very resourceful. Next, please form groups for the adventure. There are many surprises waiting for you inside the hall. Have a pleasant time, the census taker said with a sinister laugh. My colleagues were all hyped up by the atmosphere, both excited and nervous. They quickly formed groups and, armed with flashlights, rushed into the palace. Because I didn't feel like moving, I was put in the last group with the design director and a few of the most hardcore overachievers. We strolled leisurely through the palace. We could hear screams from our colleagues echoing around us. Ah, a ghost! Help! Don't chase me! The design director adjusted his glasses, looking unimpressed. It's all fake. Nothing to be scared of. Alex, are you scared? He asked me. I shook my head. Not scared. Just think they're unprofessional. Oh, how so? See the hanging ghost. His tongue isn't sticking out far enough. It defies the laws of physics. And that zombie over there is hopping with his right arm and right leg forward. Clearly an amateur. And the pool of blood is just ketchup. No effort at all. I critiqued them one by one. The design director. Just then, a figure appeared at the end of the hallway. A man in a black dragon robe. Handsome, but with a deathly pale face. He stood there silently, watching us. Hey, this actor's costume is pretty good, one of my overachiever colleagues commented. He's handsome, has a real kingly vibe. The design director nodded. Yeah, this one's worth the money. Much better than the extras. I looked at the figure and sighed. It was Blackie. He had come out to perform himself. Welcome, guests, Blackie said slowly, his voice laced with a hint of resentment. Welcome to my home. He walked toward us. With each step, the temperature dropped. A terrifying pressure began to fill the air. It was his natural aura as a ghost king. Even though he was trying his best to hold it back, for mortals, it was still overwhelming. My colleagues were no longer smiling. Their legs began to tremble. This actors. Really good. Why yeah. Feels so real. Only the design director was still trying to act tough. He nudged me. Alex, go. Go check if he's real. Me? Why'd I have to do that? But I walked forward anyway. I couldn't help it. I was the secret final boss of this event. I walked up to Blackie and we locked eyes. To others, it looked like a tense standoff. Me, what are you doing? You're scaring my colleagues. Blackie, I can't help it, great one. They're the ones who wanted a haunted house. If I don't make an appearance, they'll think this is a public park. Me, tone it down. Don't overdo it. Blackie, understood, great one. By the way, how was my expression just now? Did I have the dominance and sense of experience of a 1,000-year-old ghost king? Me. Whatever makes you happy. Conversation over. I turned to the design director and the others. Check him out. He's fake. Phew. They all breathed a sigh of relief. Then, in front of everyone, I reached out and wiped my hands on Blackie's dragon robe. I'd touched a dusty wall earlier. This fabric is nice. Very absorbent, I commented. At that moment, the hall fell silent. The design director and the overachiever's eyes were bulging out of their sockets. What had they just seen? Me, Alex Chun, an ordinary intern, had just wiped my hands on the costume of the most intimidating ghost actor. This wasn't just brave. This was a blatant insult to the actor, and the ghost actor, the Obsidian Lord, Blackie. He stood there, motionless. The expression on his handsome face went from menacing to stunned to blank and finally to an indescribable look of grievance. He, a 1,000-year-old ghost king, today in front of everyone, had been used as a hand towel by his boss. The team-building event ended in a peaceful and bizarre atmosphere. Everyone was satisfied, except for Blackie, who suffered minor emotional trauma. The design director, in particular, couldn't stop bragging about it. You should have seen it. The scariest Ghost King actor was publicly humiliated by Alex from our team and didn't dare to say a word. That kid Alex is a real hidden gem, a total badass. And so, my status at the company inexplicably rose. At least the director didn't slam files on my desk anymore. Life seemed to return to normal. I went to work, slacked off, and went home to sleep. Occasionally, Blackie would send his regional census taker to bring me some underworld specialties. Things like century-old ghoul wood and millennium ghost ginseng. I donated them all anonymously to support occult research. I thought life would go on like this forever, until one day, a group of unexpected visitors arrived at our company. I was dozing off at my desk when I was awakened by a commotion downstairs. I looked out the window. The plaza in front of the Apex Tower was surrounded by a crowd. In the center of the crowd, an altar had been set up. A dozen priests in robes stood with wooden swords, ready for battle. The leader was an old priest with white hair and a youthful complexion, looking every bit the part of a wise master. He held a fly whisk and announced to our building, "This place is teeming with demonic energy. A great evil must reside here. Today we, the disciples of the Holy Order, will act on behalf of heaven to vanquish this demon." Well, looks like someone was here to pick a fight. Before I could react, my phone started vibrating wildly. It was Blackie. I answered, and his voice was on the verge of tears. "Great One, help me. A bunch of priests from the Holy Order are downstairs. They say they're going to vanquish me." "Did you try to explain?" I asked. "I did," Blackie said, aggrieved. "I told them I'm a law-abiding ghost now, the building manager, with a 401k and health insurance. They didn't believe me. They keep calling me a demon lord and want to smite me with lightning." "Me? Great One, you have to do something. I can't beat them. Their leader seems to be a master exorcist, and he has a golden vessel that's specifically designed to capture beings like me." I sighed. So much for my peaceful, slacker life. I told my director I had a stomachache and needed to go to the hospital. Then I took the elevator down. When I got to the plaza, it was packed with onlookers and reporters. Camera flashes were going off everywhere. The priests had already begun their ritual. They were chanting and dancing around. The lead priest threw the golden vessel into the air. It glowed with a brilliant golden light, hovering in midair, aimed at the top of the building. A powerful suction force emanated from it. I could feel Blackie trembling on the 120th floor. The wards around his palace were on the verge of collapse under the vessel's light. "Foul beast, show yourself and face your doom," the old priest boomed. The onlookers were thrilled. "Whoa, is this a movie shoot? The special effects are amazing. Priests versus a demon lord? I love this plot. Quick, film this for TikTok. It's gonna go viral." I pushed through the crowd and walked up to the altar. "Excuse me, sorry to interrupt," I said politely. All eyes turned to me. The old priest frowned. "Who are you?" A younger priest demanded. "We are in the midst of vanquishing a demon. Civilians, step back." "Oh, I just work in this building," I said, pointing up. "I was just wondering, how long is this demon vanquishing thing going to take? Can you hurry it up? I have to clock back in soon." The crowd fell silent. Everyone looked at me like I was an idiot. The old priest's beard bristled with anger. "Ignorant youth, do you know what kind of demon resides in this building? It is a 1,000-year-old ghost king. Incredibly ferocious. If we do not eliminate it, this entire area will be plunged into chaos." "Oh, a ghost king," I nodded. "You mean Blackie?" The old priest was taken aback. "How do you know its name?" "He's a friend of mine," I said. My words were like a bomb dropped on a quiet lake. The crowd exploded. "What? He's friends with the Ghost King. This guy's insane. I think he's a demon too. Master, capture him as well." The crowd was in an uproar. The old priest's gaze sharpened. "You are an accomplice of the demon." "No," I shook my head. "I'm just his neighbor." "Nonsense," the old priest roared. "Since you consort with demons, do not blame me for being merciless." He made a gesture with his fingers and pointed at me. "Freeze!" An invisible force surged toward me. A binding spell. The authentic kind, much stronger than the half-baked one I'd used. Then, the force flowed through my body and vanished. I stood there and cracked my neck. "What's wrong, father? Were you trying to give me a massage?" It was a little weak. The old priest's eyes nearly popped out of his head. His most prized binding spell had no effect at all. Who are you?" His voice was now tinged with suspicion. I smiled. "Like I said, just an ordinary office worker. I'd advise you to stop now while you still can. Otherwise, things might get messy for you." "Arrogance. The old priest was thoroughly enraged. Disciples, form the celestial demon-slaying formation. The dozen younger priests immediately followed his command, surrounding me with their wooden swords. The tips of their swords pointed at me, forming a complex pattern. Today, I will obliterate you, you demon's accomplice, the old priest shouted, activating the golden vessel above. The vessel shone even brighter, and a beam of golden light shot down toward me. At the same time, the dozen priests lunged at me with their swords. A great battle was about to begin. The crowd excitedly raised their phones. They thought they were about to witness the fantasy blockbuster of the year. The golden light overhead, the swords at my throat. I stood in the center of the formation, not even batting an eyelid. See, he sighed. Why do people always have to force my hand? I raised one finger and pointed it at the sky. Scatter. One word. My word became law. And then, a scene that left everyone speechless unfolded. The golden vessel in the sky, which had looked so magnificent and powerful, suddenly dimmed. It fell from the sky with a clang, bounced twice on the ground, and rolled to the side, like an ordinary brass bowl, and the dozen priests surrounding me. Just as their wooden swords were about to pierce me, they all snapped in half with a series of cracks. The celestial demon-slaying formation was broken without a fight. The entire plaza was dead silent. Only the wind blew. The onlookers had forgotten to lower their phones. Their mouths hung open, their expressions like they'd seen a ghost. Which, to be fair, they had. The priests from the Holy Order were petrified. They looked at their broken swords, then at the dull vessel on the ground. Their eyes were filled with confusion and terror. The old priest's body began to tremble uncontrollably. He looked at me as if I were a creature from mythology. You broke my sacred relic. My formation, he stammered. With one finger, this wasn't just magic. This was a divine miracle. The power of creation itself. A power that only gods were said to possess. He had cultivated his whole life, considering himself a titan in the world of the supernatural. Today, his worldview was shattered by a young man who looked to be in his late 20s with a single finger. I told you to stop. I shrugged, looking innocent. You didn't listen. The old priest's face turned pale. A terrifying possibility dawned on him. He stared at me, his lips trembling. See, could it be that the being in this building is not a 1,000-year-old ghost king? But you, your excellency. He didn't dare to finish his sentence. I smiled, neither confirming nor denying. Then, to the shock of everyone, including Blackie on his floor above, this respected, venerable master of the Holy Order dropped to his knees before me. He knelt with absolute conviction, a perfect 5-point prostration. His forehead hit the ground with a dull thud. This humble servant, Father Michael, 36th Patriarch of the Holy Order, was blind and failed to recognize a true, celestial being. I deserve to die. Please, Your Excellency, forgive me. His voice was filled with tears and endless regret. His kneeling stunned everyone present. The other dozen priests, after a moment of shock, all dropped to their knees as well. They buried their faces in the ground, not daring to breathe. The crowd and the reporters were in a state of shock. The plot twist was too sudden. Weren't the priests supposed to be vanquishing a demon? How did they end up kneeling to someone else? And they called him a celestial being? A reporter with a trembling hand pointed his camera at me. "Yes, sir. Are you really a god?" I glanced at him. "No, don't be ridiculous. I'm a materialist. What you just saw was an illusion, a magic trick." With that, I walked over to the old priest, Father Michael. I helped him up. "Father, please get up. I can't accept such a grand gesture. It's all a misunderstanding." Father Michael, still trembling, didn't dare to look at me. "No, it is my fault. I was reckless. All right, let's drop the formalities." I patted his shoulder. "The guy upstairs is indeed a ghost king, but he's turned over a new leaf. He's under my protection now. From now on, you stay out of his way, and he'll stay out of yours. Deal?" Yes, as Your Excellency commands." Father Michael nodded like a bobblehead. "Good," I nodded, satisfied. "So, are we done here? If so, I'm heading back up. I'm about to be late for clocking back in." With that, I turned and walked back into the Apex Tower, under the awestruck gazes of everyone present. I left behind a scene of chaos and a group of people whose understanding of the world had been completely upended. Today, they had not only seen ghosts and priests, they had seen an ordinary office worker who made the master of the Holy Order kneel in public, all because he didn't want to be late for work. After that incident, the Apex Tower became a local legend. Some said a god lived in the building. Others claimed it was a secret alien base. And some even said the priests were actors I had hired. The rumors were endless. But none of it concerned me. I was still Alex Chun, the unremarkable intern, living a 3-point life. Work, slack off, go home. Father Michael later paid a visit with lavish gifts, hoping to become my disciple. I refused. Are you kidding me? I can't even be bothered to manage myself, let alone a disciple. But I did give him a few pointers. He treated them like priceless treasures and left, full of gratitude. I heard that after that, the Holy Order's power grew immensely, and they became the leading supernatural authority. But that's a story for another time. Blackie, the Obsidian Lord, continued to serve as the building manager on the 120th floor. Our company still held team-building events there occasionally. Each time, he would personally host us with the service of a 5-star hotel manager. He just didn't dare to dress up as a ghost anymore. He organized his ghost subordinates into the Apex Tower Paranormal Security Team. They patrolled the building daily, ensuring absolute safety. Since they started, there hasn't been a single theft in the building. It was even named the safest model building in the city. Everything seemed to be heading in a beautiful, harmonious, and slacker-friendly direction. One day, I was at my desk, playing Minesweeper on my design software. The design director suddenly approached me. He had a sycophantic smile I'd never seen before. "Ah, Alex," he said, rubbing his hands together. "What's up, Chief?" "Nothing major." The director lowered his voice. "It's just my old house. Things have been a little weird lately. I keep hearing the sound of marbles rolling around at night. Do you know anyone who's a professional in that area?" He winked at me suggestively. I looked at him. I understood. He wanted me to bust his ghost for free. I put down my mouse and looked at him with a serious expression. "Chief, as a man of the modern age, we must believe in science. The sound of marbles you're hearing is probably the pipes expanding and contracting, or maybe the rebar in the building structure settling. We must trust in science and reject superstition." I said it with righteous conviction. The smile on the director's face froze. "But, Alex, the master of the Holy Order knelt to you." "That was a magic trick," I said, my face a mask of sincerity. "The priest was an actor. I paid him $500. The director..." He looked into my sincere eyes and fell silent. He began to question his own reality. Could it be that what he saw that day was all fake? Watching him spiral into confusion, I nodded, satisfied. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number from overseas. I answered it. A respectful but anxious old voice came from the other end. He spoke in fluent English. "Excuse me, is this Alex Chun, the Celestial Lord?" I raised an eyebrow. No one had called me that in a very long time. "Speaking. Thank God. Your Excellency, we've finally reached you." The voice on the other end was trembling with excitement. "This is the Pope, Peter III, from the Vatican." "The Pope?" I was taken aback. "Yes, Your Excellency. Something terrible has happened." The Pope's voice was on the verge of tears. "The gates of hell. They're weakening. Countless demons are crawling out through the cracks. We can't hold them back. All of Europe is about to fall. So, we implore you. We beg you to intervene and save the world." The Pope's voice was filled with desperation. I listened and fell silent. I looked at the Minesweeper game on my computer screen. Then I looked at my watch point, 5:20 p.m. 10 minutes until quitting time. I took a deep breath and said into the phone in a very solemn tone, "I'm afraid." "That's not possible." "Why, Your Excellency?" the Pope asked in despair. "Because." I turned to my design director, giving him a very apologetic look. "Chief, I'm sorry. I need to request some time off. For tomorrow." "What?" The director was still lost in his confusion. I hung up the phone and looked at the director with a sincere expression. "Chief, I like to use a vacation day. I might have to go on a business trip tomorrow. To Europe. To save the world. I should probably be back before Monday to clock in." The director He stared at me like I had just escaped from a mental institution. And